A few months back, I did coverage on Gran Turismo 7 and how poorly the game has been received by fans of the series. Going to Metacritic, you can see right here that the Metascore is sitting at a pretty good 87%, but the user score is all the way down to a 2.0. And the reason behind this discrepancy, in part, has to do with the fact that the game reviewers played is not the same one that we got at launch. They added an update that introduced microtransactions. Reviewers essentially played a version of the game that wasn't bogged down by the microtransactions, whereas the final game duplicitously decided to implement the monetization elements after launch, after the good reception came out. And going to Metacritic's list of all-time worst user-rated games of all time, Gran Turismo 7 is sitting pretty damn low. By my count, it is currently the 106th worst-rated game of all time, and it is certainly PlayStation's worst-rated, user-rated game of all time. The egregiousness of Gran Turismo 7's microtransactions are highlighted here on this March 4th, 2022 article, whose headline reads, Gran Turismo 7's microtransactions are live, and GT Sports $5 cars now cost $40. We're talking about 8 times the original cost from previous entries. And scrolling down, it is detailed how during the review period, these microtransactions were inaccessible, so it wasn't possible to tell how much credits would cost when the game was released. Now that it's out, however, the full prices for these microtransactions have been revealed. Everything from the premium currency packaging here to the various costs that increase from $5 in GT Sport to $40 in GT7, and certain cars like the Audi here went from $3 in GT Sport to $40 in GT7. Just utterly ludicrous and ridiculous. And this isn't even the worst priced of vehicles. There are some legendary cars that would cost up to 20 million credits, which roughly translates to $200 of real world currency for a single virtual digital car. And then adding insult to injury on top of the high cost of these vehicles, it was reported on March 17th, 2022 that following microtransactions criticism, Gran Turismo 7's latest patch makes it harder to earn cars by reducing the rewards of the game's races and events. A Gran Turismo dedicated website, GT Planet, even did some math in this blog post titled Why Gran Turismo 7's Latest Update Has Outraged Fans. And scrolling down, you can see how, despite Gran Turismo 7 being third place in terms of its generosity of credits payout by just pure quantity, it somehow requires more time than ever to buy some of the more expensive cars in this game. In terms of the amount of time to grind to earn some of the most expensive cars, GT7 is second to last and second only to Gran Turismo 5, and the only reason that's the case is because GT5 no longer offers things like daily bonuses, because that game is no longer alive as a live service, if you will. There's something clearly wrong with that picture, and that's without taking into consideration the exorbitant cost of upgrading the cars as well. And making matters worse is that Gran Turismo 7 straight up was unplayable for the better part of 30 hours. On March 17th, 2022, it was reported that GT7 has been largely unplayable for half a day due to extended server maintenance. Gran Turismo 7 servers have now been down for over 24 hours, and it wasn't until roughly 16 hours later that the game is now back online after 30 hours of downtime. And this was made all the worse by Kazunori Yamauchi's explanation for why cars have been priced this way for GT7, justifying the pricing model as follows. The pricing of cars is a relevant element that conveys their value and rarity, so I do think it's important for it to be linked with the real-world prices. Basically, well, this is a simulation and we want to make it as realistic as possible, except the whole point of video games is to realize fantasies where you leave in the good parts and leave out the bad. We want to simulate the cars, the driving experience. That's what we want simulated. We don't want the financial ramifications. This game seems to be more concerned about simulating real-life aspects that are profitable in a video game rather than simulating things that people actually want simulated most in a video game that's ultimately meant to be fun. And it's an incredibly hypocritical thing to say when in this game, unlike in past Gran Turismo entries, you cannot sell your cars to earn credits like you can in real life. Now, Backlash did get bad enough at one point that in early April, Gran Turismo 7 did release an update in which they rebalance credit payouts and car pricing. So this helped mitigate the situation, but the damage had been done. This very much feels like a two-step forward, one-step backward maneuver where, they ultimately did take that one step forward. But at the very least, it was an improvement over launch, though I don't think people should just settle for what at least is better than the worst case scenario, especially when Gran Turismo 7 is taking that two-step forward, one-step back maneuver, and then taking a half a step forward in terms of pushing the goalpost of monetization in Gran Turismo 7 with an update that, based on data miners' information, is set to increase pricing for cars during a time when that's the last thing you want to do, given how badly your game has been received by fans and enthusiasts of this series, who are getting more and more sick and tired of how much monetization is being prioritized. This article was published on May 26, 2022, a couple days ago. Gran Turismo 7's new update is now live, adding 3 new cars, and in the patch notes, it was detailed how Legend Cars dealership in the Haggerty collection prices have been revised according to real-world valuations under guidance from Haggerty. Again, why on earth would that be something you want to simulate if the intention behind the video game is for the game to be fun, rather than make it ludicrously expensive for the average Joe to partake, or too grindy for the average Joe who has a life outside of GT7. Haggerty is an American company that provides car insurance and valuation of classic cars and has also sponsored many historic car events in recent years. The new prices will be applied from the next lineup update. The next pricing revision is planned for August of 2022. They kind of bury this in the patch notes, but of course dedicated fans will go through this, read this, and try to dig up some information, and that's exactly what happened when data miners dived into the upcoming update and saw some of the price increases. As reported by Video Games Chronicle on May 30th, 2022, Gran Turismo 7's latest update reportedly increases many legend car prices. This was something that was noted by a GT Planet forum post. A user, partially based on data mine information, determined that following the game's latest update, 27 cars will go up in price, 21 will stay the same, and 2 will go down in price. And among the more egregious offenders on this front is the Ferrari F40, which has almost doubled in price from 1.35 million credits to 2.6 million credits, and it's claimed the average price increase of Haggerty's vehicles will be in the ballpark of 3.8%. So here's the GT Planet forum post in question. The Haggerty's price increase post 1.15 update, 8.3 million credits pending 12 cars with no new engine body available. 8.3 million credits being the total number of credits by which the cars have been increased in price in their totality. And then scrolling further down, you'll find this chart that shows all of the Haggerty vehicles as well as their original price versus their new price, and you can see a significant number of them have seen their price noticeably increased. And the reception, the reaction from the community has been less than stellar. We've got this forum poster stating the fact that they withheld the F40 from the normal Haggerty rotation before the update just to increase the price shows you PD's position on this. Gotta keep milking the microtransactions cow somehow. Meanwhile, still can't sell cars despite their emphasis on trying to simulate the realism of car culture. Still only 4 viable grinding events, and the broken FFB makes the driving even less enjoyable. Custom race and online payouts still pitiful. Daily roulette still a slap in the face every time. Still no login bonus. Still no bonus for using lower PP than opponents like GT Sport. Still no seasonal events. Only 1 time trial every 2 weeks. GT Sport had 2. We don't know how much the payouts will be, but probably peanuts as well. So even with the previous update that improved upon the awful launch state of the game in terms of monetization, it was still all ultimately far from ideal. Payouts still ultimately felt too low. The grind felt too high. It still very much feels like a game that goes way out of its way to try to frustrate and manipulate players into spending their hard-earned money on additional elements in the game, despite having paid the premium base price of purchasing the game itself. On Reset Era, you'll find backlash surrounding this, with this forum post trending. PD had a huge backlash after lowering prices in the game in patch 1.07, so they corrected in 1.08 and made a U-turn explaining this was a misunderstanding and never wanted to screw its fans, blah, blah, blah. But now with update 1.15, we can see where the franchise is heading with its Haggerty partnership and pricing policy. Many legendary cars' prices went up drastically because why not? This very clearly highlights the whole two-step forwards, one-step back maneuver, and then followed by essentially a half a step or an extra step forward that brings him back to the two-step forward. The Reset Era user then links to the GT Planet post that highlights the changes that we know of so far in terms of pricing, and then continues with, to me, the situation hasn't changed drastically from when the shitstorm happened. The whole game economy is still a complete ripoff, pushing you towards microtransactions, still cannot sell cars, still cars needing special invitations that have a date of expiration to push for impulse buy, to push for FOMO. The loot lottery is still giving you the worst prize 90% of the time. What chance elements there are in this game in terms of earning rewards, the odds are really, really just cynically awful for the average user, and the money is still pretty hard to earn, implying a lot of grinding to get enough to buy the better cars, etc. An 80-euro game should never have these kinds of monetization and predatory practices and tactics. I could not agree more. And then in an edit, this user continues, the whole economy leans towards frustrating players to make them spend. People who claim otherwise are in full denial, in my opinion. The pattern is obvious. PD uses all of the free-to-play tricks in the book. Even if you buy the Haggerty partnership as being realistic, to me it's just complete BS and scammy. Again, whatever they do make realistic, it's stuff that would make the game more monetizable, not things that would make the game more fun or more convenient, like, again, being able to sell cars. Funny how that's not a priority despite their emphasis on realism. This forum user aptly asked, then why can't we sell cars we bought? Why is the game realistic only when the devs can make money out of it? How come the Haggerty feature is ready before the selling cars feature is? And in real life, what's the real price of a car that you cannot resell? Most very expensive cars cost so much because you can sell them later if you choose to. The current situation of hugely expensive car with absolutely zero resale value makes no sense except pushing for microtransactions. There is no aspect about how GT7 is dealing with their monetization that is actually realistic, and we don't even want it to be realistic. We want the car simulation, the racing stuff to be simulated well. What we don't want is the stuff that makes car culture less accessible. The cost. And of course on Reddit, plenty of people are speaking out with this poster noting how legendary car dealership price increases post 1.15 update, 6.4 million credits and counting. Obviously this number has gone up since to 8 million, and I suspect that once we get the full picture, that number will likely increase even more. In the responses to this, people are both making fun and also expressing their disdain. LOL, nothing like playing a game and being reminded you're still too poor for anything. It is truly a simulator. I can't afford a new car in real life either. For the same reason that characters in video games walk way faster than we do in real life, because it's a video game and it just makes things more fun and more convenient, and it just cuts down on navigation time that would be boring if characters in game walked in the same speed as we did. We shouldn't have to pay exorbitant amounts of money for virtual cars that we don't really even own, that we can't tangibly touch or play around with, except in the Gran Turismo environment. Here's somebody else criticizing the roulette aspect of this game. I just want the roulette wheel to be legit. Put 5 options out there from lame to great, then randomly select a prize. Fairly, that's a word you never associate with microtransactions and loot boxes. I don't have time to grind for hours. I can squeeze in enough play to earn the prize daily, so give me a fair chance. It pisses me off when I drive 6 days in a row and have 26,000 credits and a muffler for a Mazda Miata to show for it. Basically, no matter how many spins I partake in, the rewards that are given out are 99% of the time utter crap and utterly useless. To close things off, we have 2 more posts here. Nice to see that they're so ready to raise prices on cars to reflect the current market, but dragging their feet on allowing us to sell cars. While they're at it, they should adjust the price of the Lexus RCF. There's no one in their right mind that would pay almost $100,000 for that car in real life. Not even the current model costs that much. Even their claim that car pricing has been set to reflect real life isn't really entirely accurate, with GT stuff actually being overpriced with certain vehicles. Here's somebody else who said, also, I was super happy to see that the Honda Project 2 and 4 powered by RC213V, which cost 100,000 credits in GT Sport, now costs 1 million credits. Nothing like a 10 times increase in a single car's price alongside a real-world reduction in the rate of credits gained. Yes, very true to life, huh? The game already sabotaged itself plenty with its launch greed and its duplicitous way in which it distributed review copies and a version of the game that wasn't reflective of the greedily microtransactions infested real experience. But now they're flip-flopping around, they're taking steps back, steps forward, and clearly they're not trying to learn from their mistakes. They're just trying to see what they can get away with and slowly build towards getting away with as much monetization as possible. It's incredibly scummy, and I'm disappointed that Sony and PlayStation would release a game like this and be okay with implementing a monetization system like this and would actually approve of this. I hope people continue to speak out, because otherwise future Gran Turismo games and entries are only bound to get worse and worse with their monetization, just like how FIFA got worse and worse over time. If pushback doesn't happen now, disruptive pushback, then GT7 is only going to get greedier and more realistic, if you will. What a load of bullshit. Well, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the latest surrounding GT7 and this update that is re-increasing prices for certain high-value vehicles. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.